before we adjourn, the exercise of the right of reply has been requested. May I remind members that statements in the exercise of the right of reply are limited to 10 minutes for the first intervention and to 5 minutes for the second intervention, and should be made by delegations from their seats. I now call on the representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Madam President, in the exercise of right of reply, my delegation wishes to respond to the statement made today by a representative of Israeli regime. The Israeli regime has long history in following opportunistic policy to mislead others. The intention of this psychological projection behavior is to divert attentions from its inhuman and savage actions against Palestinians and other Arab nations. This has brought so much suffering, caused so many crises, and so much instability and anger throughout the region. Israel regime continues to be the top spoiler of peace and stability in such volatile region as the Middle East. The Israeli showman misses no opportunity, particularly to accuse Iran. His fallacies in his statement confirm his pathological tendency to tell monstrous lies and distort reality. This is to distract the attentions from his regime's inherent cruelty and brutality against Palestinians, to cover up the killing of defenseless women and innocent children, to hide the fact that millions of Palestinians are being taken hostage by Israel for decades, to mask Israel's face as the last apartheid regime in the world, to conceal the reality that this is the only regime in the world that openly practices racism and recently legalized it. Israel, the warden of the world's biggest open prison, Gaza, dares to stand here once again and make a statement filled with despicable lies. No amount of slur, no amount of lie, no amount of fabrication would cover up the criminal nature of Israel. This is a dreadfully regressive and undemocratic regime led by a corrupt leader who pretends to be progressive and democratic. Israeli prime ministers' ethno-religious fantasies are indeed very close to other extremists, namely Daesh. Israel's absurd claim of being democratic echoes similar assertions that Nazis used to make before dragging the world into destruction. A democracy for racists and supremacist democracy that crushes dreams of true owners of Palestine for self-determination. That is a mockery of democracy. That is the tyranny of racists. In fact, Israel is the enemy of democracy in Middle East. It hates democracy. There would be no room for Israel in the Middle East should democracy prevail. The Israeli regime that rejects all UN purposes and principles in its practices and policies and defies almost all UN resolutions only misuses this august assembly to mislead others. As an example, let us see how many UN Security Council resolutions have been violated by Israel. It is about 300, ranging from weapons of mass destruction to the establishment of nuclear weapon-free zone in the Middle East. On the Israeli-Palestinian related issues alone, Israel has violated 225 Security Council resolutions. The latest of such resolutions was the Resolution 2334, which called for an end to Israeli settlement building. In the Council meeting on 20 September 2018, almost all its members, of course, except Israeli big patron, the US, refrained to valuation of this resolution by Israel, urged it to end defying the resolution. Israel holds the record of ignoring United Nations Security Council resolutions, the symbol of an international outlaw. To do so, it relies mainly on US. To date, the US has used its veto power a total of 44 times to shield Israel from Security Council draft resolution against Israel. Mr. President, exhibiting some photographs of Google Street View, today the Israeli showman claimed that discovered new nuclear facilities in Iran. This is yet another false story. It is not surprising, as lying is in his DNA. Instead of such fabrications, he should stop threatening Iran with nuclear annihilation, as he did recently. Such an inflammatory statement against an NPT party constitutes a serious violation of international law and UN Charter. Recalling that Israeli regime has attacked two peaceful nuclear facilities in our region in the past, the Security Council should strongly condemn the threats by this regime to use nuclear weapons against Iran. It should also be compelled to abandon its nuclear weapons, to accede to the NPT without delay and preconditions, and place all of its nuclear facilities under the IAEA full-scope safeguards. This regime should stop its destabilizing conduct and frequent encouragements against the countries of the region, and its regular violation of Syrian and Lebanese airspace, and put an end to its airstrike against various targets in Syria. These airstrikes effectively serve as air support for terrorist groups. Let us be outright clear. We watch Israelis' criminal behavior whenever they do it, wherever they do it. The time that Israel hits its neighbors with impunity is past. I thank you, Madam President.
I have no further requests for the floor. The meeting is adjourned.